Hello and welcome to this episode of Heal Your Past, Master Your Future podcast. My name's Tracy Malone, and this episode I would love to speak to you about who owns responsibility. Whose responsibility is it? This is a really beautiful conflict resolution tool. This is a really beautiful one for people who have no boundaries, who need them. It is a lovely way for you to consider boundaries. And it is useful pretty much all of the time in my life because boundaries were really tricky for me. And it's also something I use in parenting often as well, which is a really cool tool. So for those who are watching this podcast, you get a wee little visual here that I've drawn on a piece of paper. And if you are not, I'm going to explain it to you. So don't worry, keep driving. You're completely safe and I've got you as well. Because it's a really simple concept. And what this concept is it's a bit from Byron Katie with the work of Byron Katie. She brings this in and she talks about whose business are you in? And this is a little adaptation to that. And it's a really lovely one. So imagine an A4 sheet of paper. And the A4 sheet of paper is split into 3 sections, with the middle section being a little bit bigger. So we've got a strip up the top, we've got a big strip in the middle, and then we've got a strip down the bottom. And in the top third of that A4 sheet of paper, we've got theirs. It's their responsibility. And then in the bottom third, that other section, we've got mine. This is my responsibility. And in the middle section, we've got our responsibility. And in that big middle section, there's also a big circle, and it says God in it. Because there's also stuff that really is God's responsibility, and we're going to learn how to leave it with God and know what it's like when we're all up in God's business and how that works for us. So when we're thinking about conflict, think about who owns which part. In every conflict, in every relationship, here's my part of the responsibility. I am fully responsible for this part. And the thing we're most fully responsible for is what we say yes and no to, what we're actually available for, how we speak, how we handle and process our emotions around it, and how we respond in any given moment. The section up the top, their section, that person is responsible for theirs. I am not responsible for somebody else's response, actions, thoughts, feelings, or anything else. As a parent, my responsibility is to create a secure connection with my child. If it's mine and theirs, and this is a parenting one, and mine is me and theirs is my son, then it is my responsibility as a parent to create a secure connection and a safe place for my son to always come back to. Absolutely. In a partnership, you can also be that safe person for them to come back to in intimate relationships. But you certainly don't want to take on their emotions for them. You know, when you're around a person and they're feeling really angry and really negative and really horrible, and you are feeling pretty good, and then you walk away and you're all of a sudden feeling really angry and really negative. You're like, God, what happened then? Oh, I got right up in their business. I took all of the stuff that was their responsibility, and instead of leaving it with them, I took it with me. I went, don't worry, I'll take that for you. And I've walked away with it all. I'm sure they're feeling much better. They're like, oh, thank you so much. I had such a lovely chat. It's so good to catch up with you. They walk away feeling better and you walk away feeling yuck. That is a classic case of, I went right up into their business, said, don't worry, I'll take it for you. I shipped it down to my section, picked it up and carried it away. Our responsibility, sitting right in the middle, is things like in parenting and in conflict resolution. Say I had an issue with my partner not doing enough to help support the children. And I would say there's actually a bunch of steps you go through. We learn this in the Self-Healer Tribe, all the steps for non-violent communication. So I would go through when the children have problems and they always come to me, I'm feeling really overwhelmed about the fact that you're not helping me with that. And I feel like it's all my responsibility. And I would really love for you to be available for that with the children so that it becomes our responsibility instead of mine. And so what I've done there is my partner's obviously just gone, well, you're so good at that, I'm going to leave it all with you. And I'm like, I think this should be our responsibility. This should really be something that is a shared responsibility, because our children need you just as much as they need me. Just because I'm better at it doesn't mean I should be the only one carrying the responsibility of this. Because they're our children, they need both of us. And so that's where we meet in the middle of ours. And if you're in a conflict resolution with a friend, there might be an our responsibility there. What is yours? What is mine? What is ours? And you can really talk about that. Ours is not thoughts, feelings, responses. They belong to the individual. Ours are the shared things that we can equally take responsibility for. When you're thinking about my responsibility, you're really thinking about things that you can control. Really go, what is in my control here? That is purely my responsibility. And if you're somebody who finds it really challenging to own responsibility for your feelings, and you say words like, you made me feel angry, what you're doing in those moments is you're not taking responsibility for your anger. You're actually trying to take your anger out of your section and make it their responsibility. And this is where conflict resolution can get really tricky. And this is where these kinds of guides can really help you. What I would say instead, when you said that, I felt really angry. Feel the difference? You made me angry versus when you said that I felt really angry. Or even if you want to take even more responsibility for it, when I heard you say this, I felt really angry. That's even more responsibility. And that's how you keep responsibility for what is yours, and you leave responsibility for what is theirs with them. Leaving other people's thoughts, feelings and emotions with them. Like if you say something and they get really angry, you can take responsibility for what you said and how you said it, and think about, could I have said that differently? But what you can't do is take responsibility for their anger, unless you're outright mean, and then take responsibility for the fact that you were really mean. And then you get to repair that, if that person means enough to you to repair it. If you're trying to change another person's thoughts, feelings, actions, etc., then all you're going to do is get really frustrated yourself, because it's not within your control. It's not a controllable. You're right out of your business, and you're right up in their business, which is why I love writing the sheets like this with ours as a huge one in the middle. Our responsibility takes up the most space, ours and God's. Their responsibility is up the top. My responsibility is right down the bottom. Gives that separation so that you're able to leave their responsibility with them. Anytime we need collaboration, that's when we come into ours. Relationships require collaboration. Team settings require collaboration. Shared responsibilities. If you're a business owner and you want to collaborate with another person, get really clear. What's my responsibility? What's your responsibility? What's our responsibility when we're going in? What's our shared responsibility here? And if I take on all of the shared responsibility, we're out of balance again. Damn it, it's happened again. A lot of people I work with have that, because it's a story I know well. And this is why this works so beautifully. Let's talk about God's business. God's business is everything that is in nobody's control. I can do all of the things that I need to do. I can say in parenting, I think it's the hardest one to leave to God. I can parent my child to become the best version of themselves they know how to do. I can help them fill their toolkit to get out there and do life as best they can. But I have to leave it up to them, and I have to leave it up to God what happens next, because I cannot protect them from what's happening in the world around them. I also cannot control an outcome. So the outcome, I might say I am an athlete and I am training for an event. My responsibility is to do the best that I can to get myself ready for that event. And I can do my best in the moment of the event. The outcome of that event, I've controlled everything I can. The rest is God's business. And if it doesn't go my way, my responsibility is to process my feelings around that, process my big emotions around that. I worked really hard to get here. I didn't get the result that I expected, and I'm really disappointed about that. And I'm really angry about that, and I'm really sad about that. My responsibility there is to process all of the big emotions and then make a choice. Do I go again? Do I do this again? Is it time for me to stop? Is it, all the decisions that we need to make? How it actually went, the outcome of it really was God's business. If I think it should have been another way, then I'm in God's business. Whenever I'm like, it shouldn't have rained today. It shouldn't have had that result. It should have had something else. That person should do that. You're either up in their business or you're right in God's business. Anything that is beyond personal or collective control is God's business. The couple of podcasts ago when I talked about manifesting and why I've dropped manifesting and gone to surrendering is because I was all up in God's business manifesting, telling God how I think my life should be. What I've come to understand in manifesting is that my responsibility is to be in this moment and live this life in every single moment. And when I'm in the future, I'm in God's business. When I'm manifesting and telling God the world and my life should be a different way, I'm right up in God's business. My job is to be here in this moment. And so I hope this is helpful to you in some way in understanding this. Now, I've used this in conflict resolution, and the really important thing that some people didn't understand, because I had no reference point for it, you do not have to go into conflict resolution with anyone who you don't want to resolve conflict with. You have absolute permission to say, there was a big conflict there, I don't want to resolve it. That person is not important enough to me to want to go in and do that. If that person means a lot to you, you could sit down, you could learn the steps to conflict resolution, you could sit down with them, talk about their responsibility, your responsibility, shared responsibility, go up into God's a bit, talk about God's responsibility in it all, and you can smooth the way and lay a foundation to go forward from. And if that person doesn't really mean that much to you, then you absolutely have permission to not resolve any conflict with them at all. You can leave it as conflict, let them go, leave it with them, leave all their thoughts and feelings about it with them, and you keep your part of it, and on you go. It's like when you put things out on social media. A lot of work that I do, I'll create meditations, I'll create courses, I'll do all the things. I will control all of my variables. Everything I can control, I do. I put the best quality work I can out there. Who it lands in front of is actually not my business. That's God's business. How far my work goes, that's God's business. I do what I do. I show up every day. I post every day. I have great information. I have a lot of information at every price point, from free to thousands of dollars. It's all there so that I'm covering bases so that everyone can have access to this in some way. Who gets access to it is God's business. It really is. That is, I don't have thoughts about who should be doing this work. And I have so many clients who work with me who have amazing results, and they're like, my friend really should see you. They really need to see you. And that's when I pull out my little sheet and I say, but that's their business and that's their choice. Please don't tell them they should come and see me. What you could do instead is staying in your business. What you could actually do is just tell them what you got out of it and how your life's changed. And I promise you they'll see it anyway. What happens mostly is that person says, I really want to go and see Tracy. How do I do this work with her? And they see it through you and through the change that you've had. And so even when people are trying to tell people about my work, I say just how you speak about it. Just be really careful there, because we don't want to shoot all over people. We don't want to make them feel like there's something wrong with them and they have to come and see me to get better. And we really want to leave people to have a sovereign choice over everything. And so that's where I leave it up to God's business. I had somebody message me 2 years ago and ask about information about family constellations. And then they messaged me again, I'm not sure, it was maybe a month or two ago, and said, I'm sorry it's taken me so long, but I'm ready now. And I'd like to book that constellation if that's okay. And I'm really sorry it took me that long. And I was like, oh, I have no thoughts about how long it should be. That's God's business. That's your business and God's business. You will come and you will do this work if and when you are ready. And if you are not ever ready, that's okay too. Totally okay too. So really think about that with your work and what you're doing. Do you think people should be taking it up? Do you think people should be doing it? Do you sit there with your friends and tell them, give them advice and advice and advice and advice, even when they're not asking for it? If you are, you're right up in their business, and then you're in God's business a bit, saying you should go and do this. It should have happened this way. This should have been the outcome. So hopefully this has been a little bit enlightening for you and brought into your awareness that idea of theirs, mine, ours, and God's business. If you would like to work with me further, you can come into the Self-Healer Tribe. You can work with me one-on-one. You can download any of my free tracks that I've got. I've got plenty going on my socials, and I've still got this weekly podcast coming out to you. So www.tracymalone.co is my website, and please let me know what you think of this episode. And I'd love to hear from you. And also, please know, as we wrap this session up, that the world is a better place with you in it.